Journey of an Awakening Flanagan. The journey of an awakening spirit is about teaching you a variety of tools that you can use to step into your true self. It is about self-discovery, realizing you are not alone on your journey. We will open the phone lines, give readings, and talk about what our listeners want to know. So please welcome the host of the Journey of an Awakening Spirit, Kathleen Flanagan.
Hello, everyone. This is the Journey of an Awakening Spirit, and I'm Kathleen Flanagan, your host, and we are streaming on the Bold Brave TV network. And you can also find me at KathleenMFlanagan.com, where I have services and a free de-stress meditation. And I have a YouTube channel at Kathleen M. Flanagan. And before we start, I'm going to go ahead and do some sound to get the tone of the episode started, and then we will go on about creating a morning ritual and why that is beneficial for you. Well, one of the reasons we want to start a morning ritual, and this is something that I started years ago, and it was what had happened. I was in a mastermind group at that time, and my group was saying, because I would just get up and start working. It didn't matter what time it was. I just got up and went to the computer and checked, emails and what have you. And that just kind of made me kind of on the more of the crazier side of life doing that. And so what they recommended is that I just stop and reflect, be quiet, change how I'm operating, probably not be as stressed doing that. And so I did. Now, that was not an easy thing to do. That was very difficult and very challenging when I set out to do that. And believe me, my reaction was pretty violent. I was pretty upset by that, but I did it because I figured they knew more than what I did. And so I chose to do that, and it really did make a difference for me. And I've noticed throughout the years that I modify and tweak my morning ritual because, that's what you do as we grow and evolve. And the one thing that I notice that I do, that if I have to be on the road or I have to go and be out in the field working, that I will get up earlier, do things like the night before, so that way I can still have that quiet time, because that quiet time is really, really important for me to just get settled, get focused, and where do I want to go? And how do I want to feel throughout the day? Because if my happiness is the first thing that I want to do, then I want to do that. And a lot of times I will start with gratitude, because gratitude sets a tone, gets me into a higher vibration. And a lot of times we don't always look at that. And I know that there are people out there that have kids and it's crazy hectic in the morning, and then their whole day is crazy hectic. And what I want to talk about here is just how you can start creating those times for yourself. So one of the most beneficial aspects of a morning ritual is that it's going to boost your productivity for the rest of the day. And whenever you wake up and you jump out of bed and you start your morning ritual, you're going to maximize your time and you get started in the right way. And since your morning ritual adds something to your life, it helps you to be more productive from the moment you wake up. And if you're willing to be productive the second you get out of bed, you will more likely be more productive throughout your day. It also helps to boost your energy levels. And this is allowing you where you can tackle the day and enjoy the mornings even more. So whether you read in the morning or take a shower, work out, or your routine helps you to just, helps you to wake up abruptly, this will cut them through the morning grogginess and helps you to feel more energized, alert, capable during your morning and day. And I remember last year, I decided I was going to start walking in the morning. And so I would have my morning coffee. Then at 7 o'clock, I was out the door so I could walk about 1.5 miles, I think it was, every day. And then I'd come in and eat and take a shower. And I couldn't believe, like within probably a couple of weeks, how my energy level really shifted, because this was something really new and different for me. Instead of just having coffee and being quiet and reflecting or looking at inspirational videos, adding that one thing to my routine, it just seemed to enhance just my attitude. I mean, I felt happier, I felt more productive, I felt more creative, and work was like it just flowed so much easier. And I was really stunned by how that felt. And besides that, I was doing good things for myself, and the endorphins were releasing, and, probably losing a couple of pounds here and there along the way. But it really did make a big difference in increasing your happiness. And that is one of the things a morning ritual is supposed to do, is to help increase your happiness. And when I discovered that, it was just amazing, because then my stress levels went down as well, because I felt happy. I felt in control more. And, when winter came and I got sick, then I stopped doing it for a while. And I was still in a good place, because I was still doing all the other morning rituals. It was just not the walking. But I noticed that the walking really made a big difference all the way around. And it's something that I go in and out of. I need to work on being more consistent, and, I'm human just like the rest of you, but I still do all the rest of the things that I've set that my intentions of doing in a morning ritual. And I just felt that when I was happier, I felt like my world was happier around me as well. I felt like people were responding to me differently because I was different and showing in that happiness. And it just was infectious to me. So I just, it's just something that this is my own personal journey that I felt. And it just felt really good to do that. So when we start seeing these benefits, it just has a tendency to want you to keep doing more. And many studies have been conducted that show how much a morning ritual can change and impact somebody's life. It shows that having a good morning ritual will benefit your life for the reasons listed above, plus more. And not to mention that there are plenty of anecdotal stories out there that supplement all these studies. So when you want to start to have a morning ritual and you understand the benefits, it's now crafting what that's going to look like for you to work with your schedule. And one of the easiest steps that you can do is you don't have to change anything. The only thing you need to do is roll out of bed like you normally would, and then reflect on what you do and how you feel after you wake up. And it is really as simple as that. But another good thing is keeping a morning journal. So if you get out of bed before you have to deal with the kids, and you just have a morning journal, which is going to start setting the stage and keeping you, like, you get to see your progress. That's what I'm trying to say. And it just is another way of just having that time where you're looking at yourself, you're reflecting on what you want and how you want things to go. And it's a good way to log your feelings and emotions too, because, sometimes I know people that said they wake up and the first feeling they have is doom and gloom. And I've never understood that, because I've never felt that way in doom and gloom, other than when I went through grief with my mother's death, and you just can't get out of bed, and I was still doing a morning ritual, but, during a grieving process, it was a lot different as far as the, my mental state. But I still kept working on it, and I still did that, and I still reflected and acknowledged the feelings that I was having. And, so I did that. And, people were like, just get out of bed, make the bed. I mean, it was like, take one step at a time just to get back into the swing of life, because, the death of your mother's pretty intense. And I certainly had I had no concept that this would bother me to the degree that it did. So then the other thing you want to do to personalize it more is just track how long it takes you to do things in the morning. So if how long does it take to make breakfast for the kids, that kind of thing. So what is it that you're repeating over and over? And this just gives you an idea of what you're doing every morning so you can start to find more time in changing to where you're taking care of you first. So once you know what your mornings look like, you can start looking at how you perceive them. And your perception is always about how you're going to want to move and manage into it. So if it's important to physically write down what you need to do in your morning to get through the morning, then observe after the observation period is compare how your perception matched what was different in your reality. So if you write down your perceptions, it will be hard to know what you initially thought about the morning. So if you didn't write down what you thought it was and then what it was, it's kind of hard, but that's how you start to tweak how to make those changes in your life. So then you just go about your morning as usual. And then at the end of the day, when you reflect on the period of what happened and how you can modify and change and tweak your mornings to where it's not as chaotic, because nobody wants to start their mornings in chaos. I mean, it just sets the tone for the rest of the day. And believe me, I think my mother, when we were all little, I think she must have gone crazy with 5, 6 kids trying to get us ready for school. I'm sure she was insane, but she was also a stay-home mom, and that was totally different generation than what we have now. So, that was the whole thing is, just wanting to take control of your life where you stay calm and reflective. So when you look at So from the get-go, when you understand what your morning routine is, it's not going to change your entire life. But what it will do is it'll probably help start curving some of the bad habits that you may have that you start out in the morning where you're just crazy or you're angry or you're just not feeling good, and you take it out because it's another day and you're just crazy insane that way. So and your morning routine is actually supposed to be easy. And what is the main objective that you want? So when I started doing my morning routine, when I changed it and modified it a lot last year, because the one thing that when I was in this mastermind, Bob Proctor had passed away, and I got an email about a free mastermind thing that he was doing on Facebook. And I decided, okay, well, I'm going to listen to it because why not? I like Bob Proctor. I met him. I have a photo with Bob Proctor, so I was very well of Bob Proctor and had understood his and bought programs from him and stuff, years ago. But the one thing that came up that I didn't think about was my self-image, because it was one of the things they talked about is, well, what's your future self want? And a morning practice for Bob Proctor was very, very important. And when I was in this program for that 5-day challenge, I really honed in on that. Was a big missing component in my life was not really looking at what my self-image was. So when I started walking, part of it is that I had this idea of what my future self was going to look like and how I wanted to feel in that future self. And that was not where I was today. Now, I wasn't doing bad and I wasn't hurting myself or anything like that, but I just wanted to be happier, because the one thing that I noticed that when people are really working on themselves and growing and changing, the one thing that they always they look so happy. They're always happy. And it's like, I want to be that happy because I never feel that happy. So what I did is I started to learn techniques about being happy. Like, when my cats do crazy things, I started laughing and started enjoying it. And here's Felix, because he has to come in and be the star of the show today. So, and that was something that I had to do, is I actually had to learn how to be happy and to start laughing. And when we come back, after we hear from a word from our sponsors, I'll go in a little bit more.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense Radio Show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Welcome back, everyone. This is The Journey of an Awakening Spirit. I'm Kathleen Flanagan, your host, and we are streaming on the Bold Brave TV network. So when I was talking about wanting to be happy, that was one of the big things of really wanting to change that persona, which that was a priority goal. And so when you're creating your morning ritual, part of it is you want to prioritize what's really important for you to start achieving to move you to that next level and moving closer to the dream that you're looking at and what you want. And I think when I did that and the walking just emphasized it, and I just felt energized, and it was like life seemed like nothing could go wrong. Now that, of course, is the furthest from the truth, but my whole attitude and disposition changed in ways that I was really surprised by. Because, I no longer looked at that the world was doing to me. It was just showing me where I'm at today, what's my thinking, where am I going? And it was a total perception change for me, looking into life differently by being happy and maintaining the happiness and wanting to stay in that place, because I found life was just so much more enjoyable, and having that Eeyore attitude just wasn't working for me anymore. And my future self was so far from that person. So I think that's what was the coolest part of having that. And I found activities that actually enhanced that. Because the other thing that I started doing that I wasn't doing was I started looking at more inspirational videos. And Earl Nightingale was probably one of the ones. And the whole thing, I think the one that I kept looking at was just about the self-image and how he talked about that, and how your self-image and being happy takes you to places you're not used to going or you wouldn't go. It's not always about your skill set, it's about your attitude. And so I wanted to develop a better attitude. And when I started focusing on having more of a winner's attitude and building my attitude differently, I noticed everything changed even more so, because I know what it's like to be a grumpy person who's just frustrated with life, who's been miserable, because I have been traumatized in my life. I have suffered so many different things, and I didn't want that person running my life anymore, because it was my past, and my past was not going to live in my future. And that was pretty much what I decided on. And so when I made that change, of course, all your paradigms start coming up also, because you're making those changes in your mindset. So this comfort zone that we get into was like showing up in my face. But as long as I was walking and getting those endorphins, it was like I was smoother sailing. And so I was really surprised that having just making that one tweak in my morning ritual, well, actually it was a couple, but the walking, I think, was the biggest part. And then having that self-image going on, which then enhanced that. So, I mean, the whole thing is in the morning that if you have to get up and you have to take care of the kids, get up a half an hour earlier and just have that time for yourself and just be quiet and have a cup of coffee or whatever it is and reflect on what that's going to look like. Because if you're calm, then your kids are going to calm down. And that's the one thing that I've noticed, that the calmer we remain, the more our world changes. And, when I'm in this new program, it's the whole human framework that David Bear puts on. And so I started taking this course. And it was another one of those mastermind challenge courses that it was free for 5 days. And I had kind of met him a year ago or so. But the whole thing is that what was interesting about this one is that as we grow and evolve, there is a point where we start feeling like we're stuck. And I started feeling like all the tools that I had, there was still something missing and I couldn't find it. Well, I found it in this program with David Bear. So I signed up for it. And the biggest thing that I found is resistance. That resistance stops us. So it's not just our limiting beliefs, but we have this resistance factor. And it's like paying attention a little bit more about changing the dialogue in my own head. And then reprogramming my brain for that. So that's what I'm working on now. So this is like a whole new morning ritual that I'm doing is, when I say, well, I don't know how, it's like, well, but you do know how. You just need to find the answers and go research how to do this, or you need to talk to somebody about it. So again, it's another form of getting rid of that victimization that we go into. And because of that, I've started moving into a different place. Now, there's a lot of stuff coming up. There's a lot of traumas coming up. When I told you that a friend of mine, my best friend from 40 years ago, passed away, and I was okay with that, but it wormed its way into such a place. And when I started this program, it was like all these new things were coming up, where I thought I had worked on a lot of different things in my life. Like I thought I dealt with the abuses and unworthiness and undeserving and abandonment and unlovable. And no, this week it's all in my face. So instead of going, wow, this is really kind of sucks to be in this place, what I've discovered is I'm actually contracting. And so in my morning practice now, I'm just diving in and being quiet and being still and looking at something new and realizing that there's this big expansion coming up. And in that big expansion, what's coming up, I'm also feeling gripping fear, like I can't get out the front door. So I was talking to Dee in my mastermind about it. And I said, I always thought it was that I was going to be afraid of being killed because in past lifetimes, I have been killed for opening my mouth. And I said, but that's not it this time. I'm afraid that I'm going to see this magnificent person. And even though I've seen that person, I haven't really brought it out to the world the way I feel that's coming out. So she said, well, why don't you just open the door and see all these people who love you outside your door, holding their hands and inviting you to come out and be who you are. And so I was able to do that. And then the next thing that came up was there was this gripping fear, and it was like I was being held back. And then it was the little girl inside, the inner child, again, work that I had done and worked on. And here she comes out, and I'm just like, I can't move forward because she's like, no, we can't do that. No, we can't. Do you know what's going to happen? Do you know what happened when we did this before? And I'm listening to this like inner child, and I'm doing all this as I'm on the phone with Dee talking to her. And then it was like I started to sense that I was helping her, like nurturing her, because that's part of the inner child work we have to do is we have to protect that little girl who was not protected when she was little, just like the little boys, that kind of thing. And so I just took her hand and said, it's going to be okay, but we're not off the front porch yet, but we see the people. But it was like, now I'm doing that. Like I've incorporated that a little bit more in my morning ritual about really stepping into this bigger person. And like I said, our morning rituals are designed for us. What is it that we want? Where do we want to go? How do we want to feel? What's coming up that we need to change or modify or tweak? And that was the thing that now it's like I'm visualizing more about this little girl who is terrified of coming out in the world. And what do? I just keep taking those baby steps to keep coming out into the world. And if I didn't stop and journal and pay attention to where I'm at or what I'm doing, I would be missing all of this. And if we want to be magnificent people, and if we want to be who we see in our minds to be, then it's up to us to do all that work. And that quiet, reflective time in the morning, depending on what time it is or how much time you have, take advantage of that to the best of your ability. I mean, reflecting on your day is another thing. When I was in Chicago, my morning routine was because oh God, Chicago was a trip. When I was out there, what I did is every morning I would wake up and I would just journal, and I would relive yesterday. I would write about what I observed, what I saw, what I felt that day, because that was how the books Dancing Souls came out. And two of the books are up on Amazon and on my website that you can find them. But this was the journal. This was the journey of the awakening spirit. This was my personal journey. And I didn't understand what was going on because I was in this elevated space of energy frequencies. There was so much going on and changing. And the only way I knew how to stay in control was to just write it down. And a lot of times messages came in from the Archangel Ariel as I was writing. I was observing things. I was realizing that I was closer to being like one with the universe. And this is all just from writing. Now, I don't write every morning anymore like I did, because Chicago, there was just so much going on and I didn't have like a lot of people to talk to. And I was emotionally distraught so much of the time because so much was coming up. So again, it's a morning ritual that was modified and adapted and changed to where I was. And that's exactly what you do. And it's just basically to help you to slow down just a little bit to catch up with your thoughts. Because if you're feeling something on the inside, but you can't pinpoint what it is, well, you have to slow down and do it. And sometimes our days don't let us do it. So you create that space for yourself. You create that morning where it's peaceful and tranquil, and you get centered and you get focused, and you tie into where you want your life to go. Because this is going to improve all of your relationships with your children, because now you're going to teach your children that they need to be quiet and still in the morning and to be reflective. They start developing good tools. Your communication with your spouse will start improving, because maybe you sit down and you have coffee together and have your quiet moments together if you can. I mean, who's to say how this is going to look or work for you? But it's your schedule. It's your life. You're the one in power. You're the one in control of your life. And the only way to be in control of your life is to take control of your life. And I find that the morning ritual is one of the best ways to get there. Another thing that, like I said, I used to get up and get straight on my computer. That was the first thing I did. And it was the best thing I ever did to get off. And I don't do that anymore. And it's recommended, depending on how much time you have, try to stay off your devices for at least an hour, because, all that EMFs start getting into your brain. And then there's so much noise with people on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or whatever you're on, TikTok, whatever it is. There's so much noise, and you can get so wrapped up into that you just lose yourself in that process. And it's always recommended just to stay off the devices for a while, as long as you can, because I think I go on my devices probably 2 hours. I think I'm off. I stay off because nothing's that important in my life anymore. My email is not that important. I don't do a lot of social media. I just kind of troll, as they call it, because I really don't really like social media very much. It's very challenging for me, even though I try to use it. I try to understand it. The one thing I don't like is I find so many people die on social media. That's the one thing I definitely have learned about social media is, well, what's going on with your friends through that. But, staying off of the devices really can help get your power back because, nothing's that important to disrupt your morning. I wouldn't want to wake up first thing in the morning and then find out somebody died that I cared about. First thing, like at 6 o'clock in the morning or 5:30 or whatever time it is I get up, and that's the first thing I see. No, thank you. I would rather be a little bit more at peace so I can be more grounded, so I can be there for my friend who might be the survivor, that kind of thing. So another way, that's a really good way to kind of gain back some of your time is to stay off of your devices as well. So, and then, again, the nighttime routine is another big thing. That's what I think I've developed that probably in the last probably think since COVID. I started in 2020. I started a nighttime routine because, there was so much going on during 2020 with the shutdown and my own thought processes and my own fears that were coming up and the revelations of realizing things that were happening back at that time, that I started to create an evening routine. But I'm going to talk about that when we come back after we hear from our sponsors.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Journey of an Awakening Spirit. This is Kathleen, your Flanagan, your host, and we are streaming on the Bold Brave TV network. So what I was saying when I started my nighttime routine, part of it was just to start reflecting and being grateful and praying. And I was doing a lot of praying for the world because it was so different back then. And even though I didn't want to get caught up in the fear, there was a part of me that was caught up in the fear, and I needed to gain control of that. Because I'm a very private person and I don't have a problem being alone and spending time alone. But what I did discover then is I didn't like being told I wasn't allowed to go out. And I really had a serious issue with that. And so I had to really work on changing my attitude and going into that. So I did. I shifted my perception and realized that the whole COVID thing wasn't about, what I believe it was on a spiritual side is where I chose to put my focus as far as how people were changing, the world was changing, the world was healing, our waters were healing, the skies were healing, everything was starting to heal. And when you look at the numbers of 2020, that was vision. We were changing our vision. We were getting more in a line. And that's how I looked at it. And that's what got me through that. So I did a lot of processing at night and looking at that, and then being grateful that, we're here, that I'm still here. And how do I want my world to look and change once this thing lifts? And that was for a lot of people. And a lot of things did change for me for them, because I actually got into podcasting right then and there. It was like all of a sudden I wasn't afraid. I just went out and started being a guest to get out there. And as things progressed, and here I am today doing what I'm doing now, but I'm also still guesting and moving and changing. But when when it was finally lifted, the one thing that I noticed that was really challenging for me was that there was this mental thing that happened with that during that whole year of being shut down, that there was this mental thing, like I just got really lax or something. And even though I was paying attention to it, but I decided I was coming back in the world with a vengeance, and that was challenging. So I had to really work on my thinking and just like, no, this is what you're going to do. And I had to really rewire my brain, is what it felt like at that point. And so the morning rituals of just really dialing in on who am I, where am I, what do I want to do, where do I want to go, what's my mission, what's my purpose, and focusing in on that. And then at night reflecting, is this working for me? Did this work? What could I have improved on? And that really started to make like even more momentum happening. So, so like I said, when I had to go out in the field, and if I had to get up early and go out in the field, I wanted to make sure I still gave that time to myself. So what did I do? I figured out what I was going to wear the night before. I took my shower at night. I did all these things so I could still have at least 30 minutes. Well, I want an hour minimum, to at least have an hour just to get centered, to get focused, to get my mind dialed in. And the other good thing about some of the places that I go, I'm driving for an hour to get there or longer. So then I get to extend my morning ritual, but it's just getting out the door. So I don't want to be chaotic and crazy, because if I've gotten up where I overslept and I wasn't prepared, I get up and then I'm crazy and grumpy the rest of the day. And I really don't like that place, because I feel like I wasn't in control. So that's another thing. When you start doing that, you start realizing that your peace of mind, your tranquility, your centeredness starts becoming really, really important. And so that's why when I say I don't let anything interfere in my happiness. Now, yes, life still does its thing for me, and I'll give you that. And I just like, it's what it is, I have a totally different mindset because of this. It's like, okay, so all this stuff is coming up of, this abandonment and not feeling lovable, of what's stopping me from really stepping out into my true essence of who I am. Well, okay, fine. I'm contracting only for the expansion to happen, but I'm giving myself the time, and I'm still happy. That's the thing. I'm still happy. I'm still moving forward. And that is what a routine morning and evening can do for you, is that I'm in control of my life. It doesn't control me anymore. People can sit there and say things or do things, and they can irritate me, and and whatever. And I just sit there and it's what it is. It's just what it is. And I can just let it go. I don't have to get emotionally charged up anymore. I don't have to be frustrated. I'm just taking a totally different approach. Like I'm just getting off the stage. I'm not getting into the drama of whatever's happening in the world. I'm just, there's drama and they're trying to suck me in, I'm just like, no. And it's because I'm taken that much control over where I am, because I've gotten centered in my morning of what I want to do, how I want to feel, how I want to be. And if I'm doing all of that, then very little can really ruffle my feathers. And that's what I love, because I have a tendency to be a very emotional person, because, I have 7 planets in water. And I'm emotional. There's no getting around. This girl is an emotional basket case some days. And I live my life as an emotional basket case, because I didn't understand what I was feeling or experiencing or anything for the longest time. So I was forced in my own mind to go in and dig deep and dive and put words to whatever it was that I was feeling, because I was so out of control for so long and I couldn't speak, and and I just didn't want to be that person. So thank God I cared enough about myself to just make these changes. And I find now, because I thought at that time it was a curse, but now it's a gift, because I do have a handle. I do have a pulse. I do know where I'm going, and I'm in control. And yes, there are still people who can push my buttons, but not like they used to. I'm not as charged up as I used to, because the more I work on me, the less anybody else can control me. And that's the main thing of just having that empowering feeling, because we're all empowered beings. We just don't think we have that power, but we do. And it always comes back to our thinking and what we're doing. And if you're thinking something that's not right, because what's the biggest thing that I'm telling myself right now is I don't know how. Well, yes, you do. And if you don't know how, go find the answer. So why would I put myself in this very limiting belief of I don't know how to do what I'm doing, and just go figure it out? And just quit saying that, because you do know, and then I start looking for things, and well, look at this. You didn't know how to do this, but you did this. You didn't know how to do this, but you're doing it. So, it's like, start looking for the evidence of, as you're doing this and you start noticing what you're thinking. And if it's not empowering, then you're in fear. And then start looking at, okay, well, what's the thought? Then say, well, no, I'm not worthless. I am worthy. And then start looking for the reasons of why you're worthy. Because believe it or not, we look at all the negative in our lives. That's what we do as humans 90% of the time. It's like, well, this happened, and then this will happen, and this will happen because it happened in the past. Well, what about all the times when it didn't happen? What about all the times when you took control of your life? And there's evidence about that. And, and that was like, wow, what's with this negative thinking? And I think it's just the way this planet is, and just the craziness that's happening, that people are dialing in more on what's the dark side of things instead of what's positive. And when I started in this morning ritual, it was like it added to opening my heart. It added to me feeling that I was, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know the word. I can't think of it. I just wanted, I think the biggest thing that I keep coming back with this is the empowerment that you feel, the self-respect the love you start feeling for yourself, because how many people don't really love themselves? They just really don't like themselves, or they, and that was something that I wanted to change that about myself as well. And I was talking to a friend of mine, and this is something that I did last week too, which I think probably brought in this little girl, was when I was talking to Dee the week before. We both had very traumatic lives, and things were coming up, and not that I was upset or anything. It was just what they were. And she came up with this suggestion that I thought was very amazingly beautiful. And she said, why don't you just write letters, one letter a day, to the people that are really strong and meaningful in your life, that have helped you, that have been there, that love you for who you are. And I did. And it was like, wow. And then I read it to my friends, as I did this. And it was such an empowering feeling. And it made me feel so much better. That's why I think this unlovable little girl showed up, was because I took this, what she was suggesting, and I took it, and the power that went behind it. And I told her, I said, Steve, you got to read your letters to your people. I said, talk about a total game changer. Because in that, I was reading to one of my friends, and we laughed and we cried, because we went down memory lane, and it was like during a fun time that we had. And it was such a cool thing. And then she said, the one thing you haven't done is you haven't embraced truly who you are yet. And I was like, well, okay, I think you're right about that. And then, of course, that led to something else. And again, so what did I do? I started changing my morning routine. I started writing the letters, and now I'm visualizing. And it's just tweak it, just pay attention. I mean, I still get up every morning at the same time. I still drink my coffee. I'm still quiet. I still play with the cats. But then I add a little bit here and there. And that's probably the most empowering place I can go because, as you all very well know about my basement, um, I've been getting more insight on my basement too, that there was holes in my foundation because we discovered there was holes on the north side of the house, literally holes. I wouldn't put my hand down there because I don't know what was down there. So I filled it with rocks. But the whole point is that I have been being warned and told that, my foundation needs work. So my foundation has holes in it. Okay, fine. But what I think the real message about that was the holes aren't necessarily bad. It's just that the old stuff is leaving. And so now I need to refill it with good, positive things. And that's how I'm taking this and looking at what's happening in my basement is that I'm just getting stronger. I'm building a stronger foundation for myself. I'm building something that's solid and not what I built it on of all my limiting beliefs, of all the trauma that was in my life, of all the ill will that people have said about me. I mean, it's like it's leaving. And I think it was leaving naturally because I was shifting and changing and growing and elevating my personal vibration, moving up into a higher octave, becoming a bigger person than I ever could be. And it was all because I just started doing a morning ritual. And who would have thought? I mean, I just took it for granted for the longest time. And as I was reflecting on doing this show, and as I'm talking now, I'm sitting here going, my God, this was a game changer for me on many, many, many levels. And I highly encourage that because, who wants to start the day icky? I don't. I certainly don't. I like growing. And my philosophy has always been, we're here to grow and to learn and to change. We're here to evolve. And that's what I say all the time. So when people can't keep up with like all these things I have going on in my life and they're like, I don't know how you do it. And I says, because I'm here to learn. I'm not here to be in a rut and not move forward. I'm here to learn, to grow, and to evolve. And when I do that, then I'm living the life that I want to live. I'm in control of my life. I'm not letting anyone else control me. And that's what you are supposed to do too. You're supposed to just take the bull by the horns and let's go live some life. Well, we're going to go ahead and take a break to hear a word from our sponsors.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like it was almost instant, like I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic on the BBM Global Network, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, Rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies. Find settings that allow them to be the most productive and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Journey of an Awakening Spirit. This is Kathleen Flanagan, your host, and we are streaming on the Bold Brave TV network. So to wind everything up, I think the best thing for you to do, as I had done, is what is it that you really want? Really, truly sit down and look at what is it that you want and create that goal list around what it is and then what you think you might need to do with it. And then focus in on that, because when I decided I was going to change a lot of things, that morning ritual is that I wrote down what I was grateful for. I wrote down what I was going to do for that day. I wrote down my observations of things and listened to inspiration and what was coming up. And that quiet time really helped me to dial in and focus in on where I wanted to go. And it helped to maneuver the direction that I was going in. So even though I may not have had an idea of what I was going to do that day, sometimes just by doing what I did, it allowed me to hear that quiet, still voice in my head of what I should do that day. And that was what I did. And that's where that empowerment started to come in. That's where my growth, I felt, was accelerated, because I was doing things that were not normal for me. This was a little bit out of the norm, but the excitement and the fulfillment and the joy that was coming was way beyond my expectation, where I can laugh more now than I used to. It used to be like something had to make me laugh, and now I just started looking for things to laugh at. You know, like if the cat does something, an antic, instead of looking at it and just smiling, it's like now I laugh, because they're entertaining me. So why not let them do that? Because then they do more antics when they entertain me. And I started looking for little things to start laughing at, because my partner, he's always laughing, and it's like, and I observe him all the time in his laughter, and it's like there's like this joy about him, and the littlest things can make him laugh. And I'm starting to like do that myself. So he's been teaching me a little bit more how to lighten up and laugh more. So I'm really excited about this, and I really hope that you find your value and the worth of starting a morning ritual and just doing what feels right to you, because it's you, and only you know what's going to be right for you and what feels right for you. But you're worth it. You're worth every bit of having everything you deserve in life. You deserve the happiness and the love and the prosperity and abundance. You deserve all of that, as I do. But I had to learn that I deserve that, just like you do. And little steps like this can go miles, and we just don't know that until we keep moving forward and reflecting. So I just wanted to really end with that I really do appreciate you guys watching, and that you're there. And I hope that you're really receiving some benefit out of this. And I would love to hear from you if you are. I mean, I do have the Bold Brave TV at KathleenMFlanagan.com. I'd love to know if there's something you would want to hear that's different or whatever. I want this show to be about you and what you want to learn and what you want to know. So, I mean, any feedback would be great. I would love to hear from you. I also, on my KathleenMFlanagan.com website, I do have services and coaching, and I also do have that 3-minute de-stress meditation that's under the services, and it's completely free for you to download. So I hope you listen to that. I'd love to get your feedback on that as well. And you can also subscribe to my YouTube channel at KathleenMFlanagan.com. And with Awakening Spirit and Grandma'sNaturalRemedies.net, we are offering 20% and 40% off by entering Brave TV into the coupon codes, because Awakening Spirit is looking into restructuring and going a little bit more sustainable. I mean, we're pretty well there, but little tweaks and minors, and we're looking at doing an update product update a little bit, not ingredients, just the look. And so we're looking at rebranding a little bit. And so basically, I just want to say thank you again for watching. This is Kathleen Flanagan with the Journey of an Awakening Spirit. And from my heart to yours, I hope you have a fabulous week.
This has been the Journey of an Awakening Spirit with your host, Kathleen Flanagan. Join Kathleen each week as she will inspire and empower all those who are drawn to her to live their highest vision in the context of love and joy. Right here Tuesdays at 4 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network.